You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody's going into a great weekend. I look forward to this show. We got a great guest on. I think you guys gonna, I don't know, definitely hear a perspective that you definitely haven't heard before. So I want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. We got, there's a bunch over there already. So we got Elizabeth Matheson, Lori Matthews, Deborah Davis, Brett Kay, Jeff Johnson, Old Guy Wise, Jim 8, Try 8, and a whole bunch more. Disney Up, Boiler Up, always good to see you. Lori Matthews, always good to see you. All right, folks. So we'll give everybody just a few minutes to trickle in here. Nobody's on time in 2025 anymore. We'll just go ahead and hit the rules. You know what? Treat everybody in the chat with respect. Don't type in all caps. I'm just going to ignore you. And let's just be adults and have adult conversations and kind of explore all the different options. Listen to what Henry has to say. I've thought of many more, and I'm not a good interviewer. I'll just tell you that right now. So, you know, I knew when I got up there and ran into him and then talked to him, I'd have 50 more questions. And then what I love about doing these lives is you guys fill in all my brain gaps because any of you guys are 10 times smarter than me and you have the right questions. I also was just looking at some of the comments and things like that of the video I posted of my interview with him. And there's definitely some things in there that I want to address, some good comments, and I think there's some good answers to some questions in there. But we'll get into all that tonight. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Henry on. Henry, what's happening, man? Welcome to the show.
Good, dude. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Thanks for having me.
No,
yeah.
Glad to have you. Oh, folks, what we'll do, like we normally do, is we're going to have a normal podcast. Henry and I are going to talk, and then we will definitely try to get to your comments. Not try. We will get to your comments. We will prioritize the super chats, but I will try to get to as many of the live chats questions as possible. So, Henry, I guess let's start off first things first. First of all, just introduce yourself to everybody. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll get into everything that happened on September 10th, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Yeah, so I'm originally from Texas. I think it's quite funny. I grew up in East Texas, country boy, out in the middle of nowhere. You know, average hunting, fishing, all that stuff, all the country loving stuff that us rednecks like. And so I actually I work in construction. I run a construction abatement company, which brought me out to Utah. And I've only been out here maybe 6-7 months. And, you know, it kind of led to this whole thing where, you know, I'm just trying to live the American dream, follow the things that, you know, everyone like Charlie Kirk stood for in regards to, like, you know, the minorities and stuff like that in the country. And I thought it was so crazy whenever I came to Utah and met a lot of the people over here that I kind of known from a distance. And I ironically am also LDS. And so it's one of the things that was really cool about moving to Utah. But I had some friends that run or are part of the TPUSA chapter there at UVU. And some of them let me know that Charlie was coming to town one week, and I was like, I'm clearing a couple hours of my schedule, and I was fixing to go to that debate and debate Charlie on something to test my debate skills, because he's really influenced me to do political debate and religious debate on my platform. So it's been really cool. It's a little bit about me.
That's awesome, man. So now, before you moved to Utah, you grew up in Texas as LDS?
Yeah, primarily I was an atheist most of my life, actually. Good. So I only converted to the LDS church, I think whenever I just turned 21. So when I turned 21, I converted, lived a few more years in Texas, and I moved out here.
Interesting. All right. Interesting. Yeah. So let's kind of get into, so You've gotten into a political / religious debate. And by the way, folks, make sure you guys go follow Henry. His all his social media links are down in the description below. So you kind of got into politics and religion. It's always fun to mix those, especially at dinner time, and especially but I think they're so intertwined, and I don't think they were ever meant to not be. To be honest with you, I know we've taken that view, and I think that was one of the things that I really agreed with Charlie Kirk on. Talking about how religion was part of the founding of this country, regardless of what people try to turn into. They try to point to the Danbury Baptist, which is just this letter talking specifically that how religion is not going to be molested by government. And that's been turned into something it was never intended to be, but I digress. So let's talk a little bit about how you ended up there that day. And, you ended up asking him the very first question. Man, it's got to be, I'm just constantly trying to think about it from your point of view of what took place and what happened. And it's surreal to me thinking about that, but it has to be even more so to you.
Yeah, dude, it was surreal for a while. At first, like I've always been a very big debater and stuff. So like I was actually excited to go and meet Charlie, and I was telling everyone leading up to the UVU event, like, yo, I'm gonna try to debate Charlie Kirk on September 10th, all this stuff, like pull up all this stuff. It's an open public discourse type thing. And I was really, really excited. And then I got to UVU, and when I started walking down the liberal arts building to head to the amphitheater where they were going to hold it, it was tense. I could tell people were like already discussing the fact that Charlie Kirk was fixing to come that day. There were people that you could clearly tell were affiliated with a certain ideology and certain group, and they were kind of just like telling people in the hallways, just like, oh, this is so stupid. This is like, Charlie Kirk's coming, and he's just a terrible man. He's a racist, homophobic, fascist, all these things, and he's not for freedom of speech. And I was like, okay, yeah, not like he's trying to have you come up to the mic and like express your beliefs, but that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of ran into early just walking towards to the event. Um, a very, very tense nature in the school, and um, I was just a regular, construction working guy who came off the street, walking through the hallways, and there's nothing. Like there's no security. Like anyone can go through. Like no one was asking you if you went to school there or anything like that. It was kind of weird when I got there because I figured there'd be people already there prepping for the rally, especially with how big Charlie Kirk was. So to me, it was a little bit of disbelief.
Let me ask you about the LGBTQ movement in Utah, because, the other day when I went, folks, for those of you who don't know, I was there, got there Monday night, was there all day Tuesday, and then left Wednesday morning. It was the only window of opportunity that I had with my other business schedule and everything else. But I wanted to get out there and obviously get that 3D scan. And by the way, we should have that tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be able to publish something on all that and give that out to everybody. The only other time I've been to Utah, we just driving from Washington State over here to West Virginia when we moved from there. And obviously beautiful, beautiful state. I want to get back there. The other thing is I have this idea of what Utah is, a fairly conservative state, very simple in the best ways. I don't mean that in any derogatory way, but a simple way of life. And I think that was confirmed while I was there. I mean, just beautiful state. Everybody was nice. One of the cleanest, like every bathroom I went, that was one thing that stood out to me. I ended up stopping in several gas station bathrooms, and every single bathroom was so clean. I couldn't believe it. So beautiful state, beautiful people, obviously a very religious tradition and heritage. Like, how big and active is the LGBT community there in Utah?
It's growing, and it's actually been growing the past few years. Because even from whenever I converted to the faith of the LDS Church, I remember coming and visiting Utah because I was dating a girl up in Cache Valley and Logan, and and Salt Lake was not as LGBTQ, or Utah County was not as LGBTQ then as it is now. Now, I mean, they just have this whole ban that went on with the whole, pride flag and stuff. But when I first got here, like 6, 7 months ago, they were everywhere on houses. Like I drove through Salt Lake and I could not believe how big the movement has gotten to Salt Lake. Like Salt Lake, like most major cities around the country, very, very blue, very progressive, but it did not used to be that way. It's only happened since I would say around the time COVID started.
And so how big was the presence there when you got there? Because obviously there was we could even see from the different footage there's quite a few protesters. I don't know if it gave us a clear representation of what was actually there or not, but we definitely saw some.
hmm Well, I mean, so in regards to the people that were like LGBTQ, like there was a number of them there. Some of them were actually in line, but they weren't the ones that had hatred that I would say for like Charlie, or they weren't like the ones that were up top all on the roofs and stuff like that, or the different levels around surrounding the amphitheater. That's where most of them were that had like a lot of hatred for them, that would just curse at conservatives, spit, do all this stuff. But there was quite a few. That
They
was there
were
was quite a
actually
few that
doing
were in
that.
line.
They were actively doing that day.
Yeah, well, my buddy David, like they were flipping off my buddy David and spitting and stuff like that. Like he was down by kind of where the waterfall was, and they were calling them out, getting them on videos and stuff like that when Charlie was coming out, and yeah, they were going just crazy, just being stupid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else that you think is worth mentioning before we get to you going up and talking, debating with Charlie directly that you can think of?
So there's this thing. I already talked about how the tensions were pretty high when we were there, but like yeah, what was that guy's name? Is it George Zinn, the crazy old guy that was there?
Yeah.
He was like an hour before the whole event started, before it got really crowded, and some of the people were kind of already aligning, kind of asking people from TPUSA, like, how do you ask a question, all this stuff. He was going around and he was just like, he was really trying to stir up some stuff with all these TPUSA people, like volunteers that help put the show on, and just people that were kind of like standing around in MAGA hats.
Right.
And he was like trying to press for some reason, you know, uh, that Charlie was a terrible dude, that a lot of his ideologies are harmful, and like if anything harmful happened to him, type stuff, it's what any conservative deserves, because they have just hateful speech and harmful speech. And I thought that was very interesting, because like around that time, like it was the time window was narrowing down to when Charlie was about to arrive and everyone was starting to come into the amphitheater, and I'd yet seen any type of any security or anything, or anyone getting checked. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, at that moment is where I got kind of a little bit uneasy, excited but uneasy, because I was going to meet Charlie Kirk, but I was getting uneasy just because there's tons of backpacks there. There's tons of roofs. Kind of like you said and corrected yourself the other day. We were talking about how that there was probably that one cop that was on the roof, but it was actually just the that second story or
Mhm.
layer. Um, Dude, besides that, like I didn't see no one there. Like they all showed up when Charlie showed up. Like nothing was being checked. So that kind of had me a little bit uncomfortable after hearing what George Zen was saying. And then I already knew a little bit about him, just because me and Congressman Kennedy, his son and I are good friends. He served his mission back in East Texas where I converted. And he's been at like so many different things, like historical events, 9/11. I think he was at the marathon thing they had there in Utah, where there was that explosion and stuff
I
like that.
think technically, because I looked into this too, he was in a documentary about 9/11. I don't think that him actually being there proved to be true, but he does
Okay.
seem to be strangely pop up. I also have heard that he's been very active in Utah politics. Isn't that correct? And he's like, and he's not a Democrat, but he's like he's like this weird thing where I don't know if he's like a groiper. I don't know what he is, but he definitely sounds like a agent provocateur. Without
Yeah, he seems to just show up to these political events to stir contention, whether or not it's like a conservative event or a liberal event. He just seems to stir up contention. Well, I've never seen him show up to a liberal event or whatever, or Democratic event, but like
Got
at these
him.
conservative ones that he supposedly affiliates himself with, he's like criticizes them left and right. So like I don't know, and it's just so weird after hearing kind of like his background and his story about like I guess like the documentary thing, or the all these other things he's done interviews for, supposedly was that when it came to these historical events and stuff. It's just it was weird to me whenever he said that, conservatives who speak like this have something coming to them. That's what really threw me off, and it had me a little bit uneasy, because when I got in line to talk to Charlie, I uh, I was wanting to ask, and I think anyone could understand this, right? I was wanting to ask his security if like, yo, did anyone check this perimeter, the roofs or anything? But at the same time, I didn't, which I feel bad, because if I did, and then that person was up there, who are they going to go back to? Like, oh, you randomly asked that question out of nowhere, huh? And so like, yeah, no. So it just, I felt uneasy about it, and when that happened, it definitely like just shot through my mind, and I sat down with the FBI for a few days, and they called me multiple times just after that whole event happened. But yeah,
Well,
it
that was one of
was.
the questions I meant to ask you, or I thought about again. I went through when I got back to the hotel. I didn't have time to like produce the content and edit and everything, but I just wanted to listen to it real quick. And I was thinking of all the multiple questions I meant to ask you. Didn't? Did they ask you if you had any footage or video or anything like that? And did you give them any video or footage?
Yeah, so the footage, they asked me if I had any additional footage, because I told them the footage that I already had. I had posted on my social media pages, and a lot of the media, would take it and use it for their like introductions to stuff like that. And so it was already out there, and it was already spreading throughout social media and stuff like that. So I told them I really didn't have any additional footage, but
Interesting.
they did ask.
Did they ask you? They talk to you about contacting you to testify or anything like that?
No, no, they haven't actually. Not to testify or anything like that, which is uh honestly, now that I think about it, kind of strange. Because you would assume that someone who's kind of there earlier kind of just was asking people how they felt about Charlie Kirk coming, because I was kind of trying to just gauge the, I guess you could say, the environments and how it felt and stuff like that. That's when I started realizing that was pretty tense. But yeah, I don't know. I think they practically all the interviews that I did and all that stuff, I'm pretty sure they're going to use that if anything. But they haven't asked me, so
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. All right. So you go up, you actually talk to one of Charlie's guys and talk to him about possibly asking him a question. You end up being the first person up there. Kind of, you have a religious discussion. How did that go? What led up to that? And
Yeah, well, at first, it was I was gonna ask him at first a political question in regards to like immigration and like visas and stuff like that, because I had a whole issue with like how long visas take to get renewed and stuff like that, especially for like construction companies, hard labor companies that have a lot of like immigrants that come on visas to work for them, and then the company starts struggling because when they run out of visas, they have to send them back. So I was gonna ask him something about that, but about 10, 15 minutes before it started, I got the impression, and I texted my friend Chandler that was there with me. I was like, yo, dude, I think I want to ask him about religion. I don't know why I feel like asking him about religion. Because he talks about mostly politics and stuff like that and policies. But I was like, I want to ask him about religion, because I just watched this video with him and Michael Knowles kind of like having a little dialogue on their differences with their perceptions of religion and stuff like that, perspectives. And I was like, I kind of want to have a similar thing, because I want to know what he thinks about the LDS like church and community and people and stuff like that. And so my thing as an atheist is which kind of led me to the LDS church, is understanding a lot of the history that I'd studied within pre-exilic period Judaism, all the way up to Second Temple period Judaism, to early Christianity, and understanding what they taught. And I told Charlie, I was like, Charlie, I think that Mormonism's more historically accurate in regards to the theological concepts that they believed at the time than Protestantism. And it was a prove me wrong booth, and they made that clear right before like anyone went up there. They were like, this is a prove me wrong table. And so at the end of my question, I was like, prove me wrong. And that's when he had a little laugh and giggle, and it was good, man. I mean, like we didn't go straight into it because he obviously went into praising the LDS community and the church and members of the church, and bragged about how like a lot of people that work for TPUSA or Mormons and stuff like that. And it was really cool to see him reflect on his relationships with people that he knew were LDS members, and how great they were, and how great the community and the church can do, or it is and can be. So that was cool. And then that talked to him about some things we could debate, and then he completely ignored it and went into something else. I was like, okay, Charlie. I was like, let's shift the goalpost. Why don't you? Let's go straight into archaeological evidence, even though I asked you a theological question. That's fine. But I'll probably end up. I got my religious page for a reason, but I'm gonna let it die down because I respect Charlie a lot. But I do post a lot of historical religious stuff, so I have to correct him on what he says wrong, or what he said wrong.
Well, I do think that would be an interesting discussion. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your perspective of the LDS Church, its history, and I think that would be a great follow-on podcast at some point.
Oh yeah.
So you were this atheist, and I'm getting off track a little bit, and I don't want to take this path down too far. So you were an atheist, and then you found the LDS. Like, it seems like that's an odd path to take, I would say, especially in Southeast Texas, right? Like,
Yeah.
Southeast Texas in general is not like this huge. I mean, there's clearly Mormons there, right? But it's not. There's lots of other places that have much larger communities, and obviously there's a lot of evangelicals. I grew up UPC, United Pentecostal. There's a huge element of Pentecostals down in Texas. So how did that work? Like, what changed your mind from an atheist to LDS?
So it was the mixed theological and religious beliefs in my household, because I had a dad who was Catholic and my mom was Pentecostal. And so kind of getting those conflicting beliefs and saying that these are all true and all this stuff, and really the fear mongering of religion whenever I was growing up in the South with I guess you could say really the Baptists kind of just like preaching this hellfire and stuff like that on you. It, yeah, Pentecostals do too. I just don't like that. If my mom sees this, she's gonna be like, "Why are you being so rude?" But yeah, no. But no, so like that kind of steered me away from religion for a while, because it made it seem like if there's objective truth to this, then we wouldn't have such division in Christianity. And so for me, I steered away from it. And I had a struggle with morals and stuff like that in the Bible, and certain stories and narratives in the Bible as well. A lot with the genocides of stuff, and stories of, like, for instance, like the city of Jericho and all that stuff, and what God commanded his people to do. Um, but honestly, it was a weird shift after um, I myself, and this is kind of like, uh, I guess touche, I guess you say, but like some people would be like, oh, of course it's a near death experience story. But it does shift your ideological thinking, though. Where I almost passed away in a car accident. I woke up from a coma after a while, and I started rethinking my perception of the world, and whether or not it was a product of randomness or a product of design. What that designer was, or how that was designed, that was the philosophical question. Uh, and I came to reading a quote from Marcus Aurelius that said, if there are gods and they are just, they won't care about how devout you've been to them, but they'll judge you by the virtues of how you lived your life. And if there are gods and they aren't just, then you shouldn't want to worship them anyways. And then he says, if there are no gods, then you would have lived a good and noble life, living on the memories of your loved ones. And I kind of use that as the blueprint for what church or institution I would affiliate myself with based off of their theological dogmas and positions. And ironically enough, I went through Presbyterian, studied Orthodoxy, Catholicism. My dad was Catholic, Pentecostal. My mom was Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist, non-denominational. I went through all of these things, and they all had like a very similar and very different in some instances aspect of us being creations, us being just basically like a product of God, that it doesn't really have true value to him, because if you don't do his will, he just throws you away like a failed, I guess you could say, project. um, and for me, that wasn't who I think God would be. And I came across the LDS church and some missionaries, and I looked into their faith, and I was like, this makes sense to me. And it kind of reflects a lot of what early Judaism talked about too, in regards to us kind of being eternal spirits that have always existed, and we were a product of a godly father and stuff like that, but like a true father. So it it shifted, and it hit deeper with me, rather than just thinking I was a product that God designed and that he could just throw away if I don't do his will or fall short or something. So that's kind of how I ended up in the LDS church.
Interesting. So you ended up talking to one of Charlie's producers, I guess. Was he a producer or just somebody?
So it was the TPUSA, one of the I guess you could say like heads for the chapter at UVU, and she talked to his manager. Whenever she started asking people like, yo, like what questions you have. Um, and That's how I kind of got my question pushed up to the front, because she liked my question a lot. She went to his manager, and he okayed the question to go first, and he put me at the front of the line.
Now, were your questions screened at all? I mean, did you just tell them what you were going to ask them? How did that work?
Yeah, so like they just kind of, I don't know, like they didn't screen it. I guess from what the lady seemed to do was just go off of what she thought would be very interesting, to kick off the event with. And I think the fact that everyone kind of that was telling them the questions that they wanted to ask him was a lot of the same things that Charlie had already confronted before at college events. I think that was a big reason why mine got pushed to the front, because it wasn't necessarily a political question, it was a religious question. And pretty sure it's something that Charlie's been engaging more in lately, leading up to that point, where religious, dialogues and stuff like that, and his perspective of religion. And so I told him how I wanted to do something and engage in that, since he was doing that. And they're like, yes, like we'll do that. We'll kick it off with that, something a little bit different. And I'm sure he'll get a kick out of it, because we're in Utah and you're a Mormon. So yeah, I think that's why they did that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've watched a lot of Charlie Kirk's campus content, and you can kind of, I don't know, there's about 25 questions or so that are just kind of recycled. They're the same ones, why do you
Yep.
hate gay people? Why do you hate trans? It's the same questions, kind of, why are you racist? I heard you don't like DEI. I heard you wanted to get rid of the Civil Rights Act. It's kind of all the same thing. It's just recycled and said in different ways. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that that makes sense, that your question appealed to them, and they put you right at the front of the list. So you ask the question, you have this discussion with Charlie, and then you kind of move off to the side. You move off to the right side of the stage, Charlie's left. For those of you guys watch the video that I released today of me and Henry's interview, I show you exactly where he told me he was standing. It was just to the left of that PVC pipe, a couple feet. So, you're like 15, maybe 20 feet from Charlie at that point. Is that accurate?
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%.
So Hunter Kozak comes up. He starts his question, and I think we all know what happens from there. So the shot goes off, and I asked you during that interview, but I'd like you to kind of expand on it a little bit. So immediately, when you first heard the shot, did you immediately make the connection that Charlie was shot? Like, how did that work? What was going through your mind at that point?
No, so during the time, like whenever I was standing there, I was one trying to get out, because it was so crowded, and they actually didn't have pathway for after the speakers got done to be able to exit because the crowd was up against the gate, and they couldn't move. They were all shoulder to shoulder, all like condensed and stuff like this. And I was looking at the direction towards Charlie, kind of like looking up and down, because during the time when the shot went off, I was giving my name and information to a Deseret news girl that was there that was wanting to get my name for a paper that they were going to publish. And that's when we heard the shot go off. And at first, it, like I told you, kind of like in the interview that at the campus, it didn't sound like what the audio makes it clearly sound like. It, you keep like when you listen to the audio, it's like, how does someone mistake that for a firecracker? No, in person, it sounded like a firecracker. Like, because you can even look at the crowd, and at first they're confused. They didn't, you know, think that it was a gunshot that went off. It
Yeah.
didn't resonate with them until they saw Charlie. Then everyone really started getting down or running out of the way. And so once I looked up after a few seconds and saw Charlie kind of at this point uh, after he had got shot, and he was kind of leaning over and seeing all this blood come out of his neck. One, wouldn't wish for anyone to see that in person. That was terrible. But second, I kind of crouched a little bit, and I just started looking at at the roofs around me from the direction that I heard the gunshot come. And I didn't see anyone, and I looked pretty close and pretty hard. But clearly from other footage that we can see shortly after that shot was taken, that dude booked it. So after the few seconds after it took me to resonate that it was a gunshot, he was already gone, or supposedly whoever the person was already gone. So I just kept scanning for a while to see if there was trying to listen and see if there was more gunshots that were gonna go off. And I didn't hear anything. And at that point, people were just trying to like get down because no one could really get out because it was so crowded. And I didn't really want to jump and suffocate people, so I jumped into like the little fountain area right there in the amphitheater, and got all soaked and stuff, but waited for like a pathway to clear out, and then jumped over the rail out towards the front where the fountains are that are shooting out in the front of UVU, and just exited from there. But I I
You went through the underpass essentially that basically they took Charlie through as well, right?
yes. So if you remember in your little short clip, um, after we had done our interview, you went kind of up that ramp, and you took your video and posted it on your channel, and kind of pointed where I was standing at the PVC pipe. Behind you, there was that open area where you jump over it and it falls down, right? It's kind of like a I guess I don't know if they used it as a way to like drain that fountain or something like that.
Okay.
But I jumped over that because everyone was running down that ramp that you were standing on. So I jumped over that, hit the bottom. I slipped because I was all wet, and ran out. But
Just so I
during this,
understand, it's the opposite direction of the underpass. Is that what you're saying?
no, so the underpass, no, so like it's like exactly if you're facing towards Charlie, like
Yep.
you're running out that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're running out into the open, yeah. So it's just
Okay.
it's like I'm running down outside the ramp. But
Got
yeah,
it. Okay.
but during that whole time, that's whenever well, during the time whenever I was like crouching and waiting to get out, that's when you heard people, like the people that were on top, and they're like, "Oh, Charlie got shot." And you could just look up and hear them talking, and like I saw some of them like give each other high fives, and some kind of ran away that were like too scared. Um, and there was like people cheering, like that one freaking guy, and there was like someone that was like, "Oh, that was a good shot," and it tipped me off. It tipped me off so bad because I wanted to go to authorities and be like, "You need to go question them," because they instantly just started cheering after it happened for some reason, and obviously they're trying to find motive still. And like if I saw someone cheering the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I would question them about it. You know what I mean? So um it tipped me off, but it made me think just how evil the left can be. But I don't want to I guess you could say put them all in that box or that bubble, because there are some people that are good
Sure.
people, right? But
There's a
but
spectrum.
yeah, 100%. But it just disgusted me because how can you say that you want to be heard, but then shoot someone who's trying to give you a voice? It's a little bit hypocritical. So it made a lot of us really frustrated whenever that happened.
Well, I do think that there's been a little bit of a downplaying of how much there's certain elements in our country actually hated Charlie, right? And I'm fine with entertaining these other theories, and I want to get to the truth, and we'll look for evidence wherever it is. I'll have anybody on here, we can talk about whatever. But I do think in the midst of all that, you know, the idea for anyone to like completely discount the idea that there's somebody that hates Charlie enough and has been radicalized enough to actually go out and shoot Charlie, I think if you just can completely dismiss that, I think there's a problem there too, because just like you said, I mean, when there's people that immediately high five each other and are cheering that Charlie's been shot, I don't know if that time they realized he was killed. I don't know what was going through their mind, obviously, but there is I don't know, there's elements of the left that seem like they have no humanity to offer. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that needs to be, whatever happens, whatever ends up being true, like we can't lose sight of that, because there is a very hateful element in our country. And again, I see it primarily on the left. I'm sure there are instances of it on the right. I'm not here to play around with this false equivalency nonsense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But what we see again, even in government, even in, you know, local governments, you go to different areas, you know, these leftist bastions, you know, you can't walk around some of these places with a MAGA hat on, right? I mean, we all know that. That's legitimate. But you could walk around any Republican town with a Joe Biden shirt or Kamala Harris shirt or whatever. Like, there's a big difference in the will and the will to commit violence. There is a big difference from the left to the right, and I don't think we don't need to underplay that, and that needs to be part of it. All right, so the shot goes off. And I know we talked about this there, but just for viewers that haven't watched our interview yet, again, you were facing Charlie immediately. Where did it sound like that shot went off? Where was your perception that it went off from?
I perceived it to come from directly in front of where Charlie would have been facing, kind of towards the back from where the Lucy building is, or anywhere to the left of it. So even maybe up on that building, straight behind where that waterfall was.
Got it.
So I thought it came from either somewhere in the center or off to the left, because that's what it sounded like to me.
Oh, if we're facing the Lucy building, basically right there, or on the backside of it over here, further left. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's exactly where it sounded like it came from. And you know what? It seems like there's footage of people that were standing up where we took our interview at. There's footage there of whenever the shot went off, and even they looked, whenever the shot went off, you can see they looked off to the right of them, as if it came from that direction as well. So that was something that helped validate me, because I felt like people were gaslighting me, trying to say that it came from the crowd. Which I mentioned in our interview, like obviously that I felt like people were probably just too much in a shock phase to really retain the information from those moments when it happened.
Yeah, no, and again, even while I was there, it was more so than I thought. Like, the acoustics of that entire place are freaking nuts. It is so weird the way the sound bounces off of everything over there. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed enough is the fact that gun going off, that audio was actually redirected through Charlie's microphone and back to the PA system. So I think there's some elements of that when you're hearing that gun report go off and come back through that stereo system. I think that's a real element of it too. So, but one thing I did think was very interesting, you did not feel like it sounded like a 30 caliber round.
No, and that's exactly what we were talking about. Like I said, I've shot hunting rifles my whole life, including the 30-06, and it's a way more deeper, louder sound than rather than a crack, like a higher pitched crack. And so for me, um, I thought it was crazy just because thinking it was a 30-06, just because um, I felt like I was being lied to, or gaslit. And then obviously, if you've shot in a 30-06 before, your mind goes to like, how the heck does he even have a neck? And we were talking about that too. And then you gave me some examples of how it could possibly have worked, and we talked about that. I'm not sure if you talked about it in a recent video or not, but it makes more sense now, as a possibility too.
Yeah, no, what he's talking about, and we were just discussing this a little bit. I do think, folks, this is pure speculation. I'd love to get somebody on here that is super smart with audio and things like that, because I did end up interviewing multiple people out there, 3 or 4 other people that were at the event. And I thought it was interesting of the different perceptions based on where they were, and how they kind of perceived what took place. Number one, the one thing I will say, all the people that I interviewed said they pointed basically right at the Lossy building. It was like, hey, I thought that shot came from there. That's what it sounded like to me. What I will say, and we can kind of look at, I'm going to pull up Google Earth real quick for everybody, because I was thinking about this. And again, this is just me speculating. I'm not a freaking audiologist or anything else. So take it for what it is. But as we let me orient myself to the map here. When we look at what's going on here, one thing I do want us to look at, and let me make sure that I got this up here. All right, so when we look at Google Earth here, and too far, and we look at where that shot allegedly came from, right? And it's going to be right here. And like, there's a very narrow window for a line of sight in between the Lossy building and this building. I forget what this building's called, but basically what this whole area is like a big cafeteria. There's a bunch of different restaurants and things like this in there. But there is a very narrow pathway between here. What I did think was interesting was that now when the shot went off, Henry was right here. He was right about here. He was on the left side over here. And I do want to talk about these hatches, whatever you want to call them. These are utility basically. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed. But my theory on this is when we have a shot that goes off here, there's no line of sight between this and the left side. So that sound is bouncing off of all of this stuff, and it doesn't have a direct path to where Henry is. Whereas it does have a direct path to people over here. I talked to somebody that was up on top over here. That was an eyewitness. And I talked to somebody down here, and then another person was, I think they were in this building. And then I think another person was over here. Both of these people that I talked to over here said it did sound like it was a big boom. And then obviously, Henry said it didn't sound like a big boom over here. And I'm just wondering how having all of this stuff in between, basically the alleged location of the gun and Henry's ears, how much that affects that, and how much it filters out different tones of the sound and things like that. So I don't know. You guys take that for what it is, but that's my theory. Because what I will say is when we look at the footage that came from what was his name? Adam Bartholomew. We look at his footage, his audio is the only one that sounds robust. It sounds like a big boom. And because everybody else is filming from phones, the audio is not going to be very good on there. So, and so far I've only heard one shot. I'm sure there's people that heard echoes and everything else. We're going to have Matt, I can't think of his last name right now, but he did a good audio analysis on this. We'll have him on. He's convinced that it's the only place that shot could have come from. And I would be happy to have other people on that would propose something different as well. But all right, so the shot goes off. One of the things I asked you about, and I know there's still a lot of debate on the roles, responsibilities, and ultimately the effectiveness, even post shot of the security, and ultimately, you know, are they in on it? That was one of the things that I asked you. Did you feel like that there was any indication that security was in on it? Did you feel like they were making half measures to save him? You know, what was your perception of security after the shot?
I think security was all for Charlie. I think what I've been hearing about, um, all these conspiracy theorists saying that his security detail was in on it and all this stuff, like, I find it hard because, at least from the one person I did speak to, Alex, who was there, he was super cool, and I figured out who he was because he was a former UFC fighter. I think we talked about that, but they love Charlie, and like a lot of his security detail have been with him for years, and I can't see why any of them would have any motive to go or turn against them or betray him and stuff like that. Same thing with his one of his photographer that he hired to be there, Andrew. Man, everyone's starting to say that he has something to do with it, or that his videographers have something to do with it, or that uh, his mentor, his pastor Christian mentor, Frank Turek, who is a Christian apologist. Um, I think he's wrong on multiple things, but uh, him touching his hat and saying, "Oh, he's singling the shooter." They tried to say he had something to do with it, and I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I I think that his security team was very sincere with protecting Charlie and protecting them from what they could protect them from, which was anyone trying to come up to him or any near distance type of threats or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. Look, there was a lot of comments in the video of people saying, well, once they realize, regardless if, because in that video, I played the video from TPUSA where they stated, hey, look, we tried to get roof coverage, we tried to get drone coverage, and we were denied that by UVU. And a lot of people were saying, well, you know, once security realized that there was no, or didn't see anybody covering the roofs, they should have decided that Charlie wasn't going to do the event. Folks,
Or postponed it a little bit.
or postponed it, right? Ultimately, that's Charlie's decision. I don't know. None of us do. None of us know what conversations went on in the background prior to the show, prior to the event. I think ultimately Charlie was well aware of the risks, and I'm sure he could have went out there with bulletproof glass and all those things. I don't think if it was, I imagine, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that if somebody came to Charlie and said, tomorrow, Charlie, you're going to get shot. We need to put up bulletproof glass. I think even knowing something that definitive, I think he would be very resistant to do so. I'm just speculating, talking out of my ass. I'll just tell you that right now. But I think that Charlie was well aware of the risks that he was taking and well aware of what's going on. He did it anyway. And that's what men do. I think that Charlie was known for interacting with the crowd. And I think there is an element that, you know, if we start putting up bulletproof glass and we turn this into this super highly secure event, things like that. My suspicion is that a lot of these decisions were made directly by Charlie. My suspicion is that, and I'm speculating just like the rest of you, anybody out there that's speculating about whatever theories about other shooters, whatever else, right now we're on equal footing. I could be completely wrong. But my suspicion is that I think his security guards, probably not even at this one, but probably at many in the past, I bet you they had given him different advice and he decided to do something completely different. I got nothing to back that up. That's pure speculation, so take it for what it is. But I do think that's the kind of person Charlie is. And I'd like to think that that'd be the kind of person I am. That I would go out there and face whatever's coming. If I felt this was my mission in life and this is what I was supposed to be doing, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So we'll take that. All right. So all that happens. I was getting ready to ask you another question and I lost. Oh, So after everything calms down there, where did you go after you made it through that tunnel area?
Yeah. So if you the little tunnel exit out the amphitheater, um, kind of next to those the little ponds and stuff like that. Do you remember those like little thin trees that were planted outside right there?
Yep.
So we all kind of ran, and a bunch of the when law enforcement showed up, because I knew myself being at the front that they were going to want some testimonies from people. Um, a bunch of us kind of huddled around those trees,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we waited for authorities to show up. And when they did, we had they had taken us into the building adjacent to where the amphitheater was to the right. So if you're outside looking into the amphitheater from the ponds, it's the building directly to the right that connects to it. The hallway connects right into that building. They had taken us in there, and they got a bunch of our information and took some statements from people. And that's at that time, like, we still didn't know the condition of Charlie. So well, m- most people didn't know the condition from Charlie because they were kind of further away. Uh, much like we talked about, Gary, what I already assumed that by the time he hit the floor, he was already dead, just based off what I saw from like 20 feet away. Because there were people that were trying to say he got shot in the chest, and I was like, unfortunately, I'm sorry, no, he got shot in the neck. You were like 50 feet away, I was 15 feet away, and I saw everything. So whenever we talked about this, whenever they were like saying, oh, he has a pulse or he has something else, and I was thinking much like what you said. Well, even if he does, for some reason, it's not Charlie, and it's not him, and he's not him fully or anything. Uh, there would probably be no consciousness there. So,
How long did it take for police to show up and secure that area?
so there was, I think, two cops that were out of the like six or something that were there. Two of them stayed. Um, a few of them rushed and followed, and kind of like escorted like the vehicle with Charlie to the Timpanogos hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it didn't take that long. It really didn't take that long. I think maybe by the time like everyone started showing up, 5 to or no, about maybe 10 minutes, like 6 to 10 minutes. They're pretty close. Like, there was a lot of people that started just pulling in out of nowhere, and you instantly had helicopters and stuff like that. But like from the by the time that they took off, they took Charlie out and started heading to the hospital, though, you already had some time that passed by. And this is just me gauging by the time I got to the trees outside the amphitheater. So around 10 minutes or so, like really a bunch of medical and security detail, all of them started showing up, and they started showing up pretty fast. So
Interesting. Yeah, that was one of the things that you and I talked about and observed, just when we were there on campus. There was cops all over the place when we were there.
mhm.
Been nice
Which
to
is
have
temporary
yeah,
based off what they said.
yeah. But again, it would have been nice to have that kind of a law enforcement presence the day of. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
What else? What else do you want people to know, I guess, from that event? What are some
To-
other takeaways that maybe you and I didn't talk about?
well, I mean, from me, I obviously would like to understand why, for some reason, and it's like what you said and what we talked about, Gary. UVU doesn't have any word or say when it comes to the whether or not you can fly a drone
Yeah.
above the school and stuff like that.
They
So
think they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
so one of my things is that, like, I don't understand, and like you said, this might be a thing with the I guess you could say the ignorance or the naiveness of his security detail not knowing the law precisely to that extent. Uh, but if they were worried for Charlie, I would have figured that they would have known the fact that UVU can't tell you not to fly a drone over their airspace to double check the roofs.
Yeah,
And this is
one
some
of the what I do think is a valid statement. One of the things that the guy that gave that statement for UVU, I don't know his name. He's a black guy. And that was retweeted by Andrew Covelt. So that's my point of saying that it definitely came from TPU. It doesn't even say TPUSA in that post, but clearly it was retweeted by Andrew Covelt. So I think it's clearly from TPUSA. One of the things he talked about, though, is, and even when we went there, I did the same thing. What you are trying to do is have a good relationship with them, right, and follow their rules and not just flagrantly break rapport with them. With that being said, and hindsight being 2020, it's like, yeah, they should have flown that drone, and there's really nothing that they could have done with it. And that's what we ended up doing too. They tried to stop us from flying a drone. They told us we had to fill out all this paperwork, we had to get approvals, and we were like, nope, I'm here one day, I'm going off campus, and I'm going to fly this drone on campus, whether you like it or not. You have no control over your airspace, and that is the rules from the FAA. It's not really laws, but the FAA does make rules, a lot like ATF rules, which should account for nothing for no one. Anyway,
agreed.
But so I do understand between them taking them at their word that, hey, they're going to cover the roof, and on top of that, just trying to be a good partner, and so that they can come back in the future, right? Because what they can do is they can either deny them access in the future or make it at least harder for them to come and revisit again. And I know everybody in the comments are like, yeah, that doesn't matter. He's dead now. In retrospect, it's easy to look like that, but I'm sure that was some of their policies, or some of the way that they acted was go along to get along, to make sure that we could have these events and do all the things, working with these colleges and universities that are already trying to control things to begin with, one way or the other. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's like you said, that taking them by their word. It was one of the things that I think they're going to get criticized for, because now they're going to look towards the integrity of UVU, and they're forever going to be in the spotlight after this event and stuff like that. So, I can only imagine there's going to be great reform. But what's also quite hilarious from this whole event. Clearly, after something like this, I was going to do interviews to let people know kind of what was happening, especially with everything going on on X that I saw, with people asking questions and stuff like that. Who got pissed off at me?
Who's that?
Hunter
Kozak, huh?
Hunter Kozak.
That's what I was going to ask you earlier. I want to get your take on that in just a second, but go ahead and continue.
So yeah, well, it's like, my thing is that was another thing that after the event happened, I was very skeptical of, because one, I'm not trying to point the finger at anyone if nothing happens or whatever, right? But the sequence of the tensions that I felt leading on to up to the whole event, and then the sequence of how he asked his questions when he got shot, and then seeing George Zinn do what he did and take credibility for what happened. My gosh, I only thought, like, one, I know this came from behind me. That was a decoy. I don't know if this also was a decoy. So I put out my opinion on an interview about how, like, I thought the whole sequence of what led up to that was very suspicious.
When you say decoy, you're talking about George Zinn being a decoy,
George Zinn,
also
for
Hunter Kozak being a decoy, or tied in with the shooter.
Tied in. Well, I mean, that was my opinion and presupposition after what happened, right?
Sure.
Obviously, I'm trying to draw any sort of conclusion leading up to what happened, because one, I know the shot came from behind me. George Zinn, doing what he's doing, took all the law enforcement that was there and allowed for whoever was on the roof to get off and escape, which took 33 hours for them to figure out who it was, supposedly. I'm not gonna say anything definitively until this is all over, but
hold on, I'll stop you right there real quick. So the shot goes off, and then George Zinn makes a ruckus, and all attention is diverted to him. That's what you're saying?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, because well, it's not like anyone else knew at the time, and like you said, the amphitheater echoes, and it may not have sounded like it echoed whenever it went off to me at the time, but also, it's not like I go through that experience all the time either. Was I a little bit more composed than most people when that happened? Yes. But at the same time, whenever someone else is screaming from the crowd saying, I did it, whatever, then, take me, well, shoot me, or whatever. Um, Obviously, the law enforcement is not going to take that lightly. And after what just happened, they're going to focus their attention towards the supposed threat versus wherever the gunshot came off or whatever. Because if there's a closer threat, you're going to take care of the closer threat first. That's
Yeah.
just common sense. So, um, but when that happened, and I gave my whole interview, my opinion and stuff, Hunter tried to blame me for him being questioned by the FBI. I was like, Cowboy, I don't know if you know this, or I don't know what your liberal mind is thinking, but you were fixing to get questioned whether or not I asked that question or gave that interview or not because of what you said. So him trying to blame me, I thought was kind of hilarious, for why he got questioned by the FBI. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. Victim blaming, pointing the finger.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, folks, like within a day or two, we had that guy's name. We knew, the guy that was asked Hunter Kozak's name. He was the one asking the question when Charlie got shot, and I found his name and I reached out to him. I told him, hey, I'd like to hear your perspective and see what happened. And really, in my mind, what I wanted to do was just kind of feel this guy out, and
Mhm.
I think you're right. Like between him, George Zinn, like that sure is a lot of weird coincidences.
Mhm.
You can tie them in. I don't care what conspiracy, what thought, who you think shot him or whatever else. Like those two things right there added in any other, you can add that to the mix of any conspiracy that you think took place, right? Or any alternative shooter or whatever. It's strange. It's weird.
It is.
It hopefully, and I don't doubt they are, that the FBI is investigating that thoroughly. And I'll tell you, I'll just leave it at that. The whole Hunter Kozak thing is weird, and then now I haven't even looked at it yet. I heard about the video of him supposedly like practicing his reaction or
Tracking
something.
his reaction before it happened.
Yeah, I heard about that while I was in Utah. And folks, it's been a
Mhm.
whirlwind since I got back. Yesterday, we had an event all day that I had to get back for. I was out on the range shooting machine guns all day. It was fun, and I needed a mental break from this and going back to shooting guns. So I haven't had a chance to look at that video, and I plan on it, and I definitely want to kind of analyze that and go through that for sure.
100%. Well, I also heard something that I heard that he was affiliated with some radical left group that Destiny kind of oversees or whatever. You know who Destiny is?
Yep.
Who the same guy who praised the unalivement of that firefighter at Butler.
Mhm.
Like, come on. He who also shows no remorse towards Charlie Kirk too.
Yeah.
Like, I
No,
mean, if
I think he's went as far as saying that the world's a better place, something along those lines, since he's gone.
without,
Yeah.
yep. And so, like, I can't say this definitively, but I remember watching a ton of videos that came across my For You page that people who uh, supposedly found out he was associated with this group that Destiny ran with some radical leftists. And so, not gonna say until that's fact checked. I'm not gonna say that's definitively true, but it only adds on to the conspiracy, obviously, with the sequence of the events that led up to it. So um, it it's going to make people think for sure.
Yeah. If they're not thinking, then I don't know what to tell you. You need to pull your head out of your ass.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get into some questions here. I'm gonna throw this one up here first. Jim 8 tried said, I can't super chat, but I would love to know if Henry knows who the guy with the white beard and white hat was standing behind Frank in the security team. Do you? I honestly don't even know who you're talking about, Jim 8.
Here, let me go through my footage and see if I can figure it out.
Okay.
Or see if I recognize him real quick. La, 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 la. He said with Frank Turek.
Standing behind Frank Turek.
Standing behind Frank Turek. Okay, let's look.
White beard and white hat. You keep looking that up. I'll kind of go through some of these.
Yeah, you're good.
Great community here, JJ from Iowa. Thank you, JJ. Well, you know what? We're better because you're a part of it. That's the absolute truth. I wanted to hit this one. This is a great comment. I think so. Frank Turk, the man who rode in the SUV with the security team after Charlie was shot, claimed that there was a drone in the air and that in a car ride to UVU that Charlie had drone footage live. So I think that's going to end up being incorrect. There is footage of a wide angle shot coming from that second story. And I think they have it on a pole camera. Folks, this is speculation. But it doesn't make sense that they had a drone up. And what I can tell you is I've seen pictures of this footage. I haven't seen the footage, but that's what I believe that's what he was looking at. And so they had a camera up on it might even be a 360 camera, something like that, up on a pole on that second story above Charlie. And if they had that out panning, really even a regular camera, if they were out there panning across there, I could see why he thought it was drone footage. I don't think there was drones in the air that day. As a matter of fact, you're the great person to ask. Did you see any drones prior to Charlie getting there?
No drones, zero. And I think that was a group of us. I'm in a huge group chat of people that were there, and that question was brought up. It's like, yo, did anyone see any drones? Because I was going to bring it up to Congressman Kennedy whenever he invited me over to his house, because he was wanting to get my opinion on a lot of stuff. Because he's known me for years, and he knows the way I think and how I think very deeply and critically and stuff like that. So he was like, "What do you think we could do in the future and stuff like that to make sure we prevent stuff like this?" I was like, "Dude, don't deny drones. Don't deny checking roofs. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this is common sense."
Well, I think it's very plausible that TPUSA is probably, and if they don't, it's only, I don't know, out of kindness or something. I think they would have a very good lawsuit against UVU. They denied them the ability to fly drones, which they didn't have the authority to do. They don't own their airspace. And then B, they didn't follow through on sufficient roof coverage. I think if they wanted to, TPUSA could obviously sue them. Who is Hunter Kozak with? Do you have an answer for that? Did you see him?
I don't think he was with anyone there. No, he was just a college student that just got in line. He wasn't there. The 4 or 5 of us that were in line, and I said this in an interview, like we talked to each other, like asking like what was going to go in. This was in my CNN interview, like, like there was a few of us that talked, just about the questions, like, what someone was going to ask about abortion, someone's going to ask about racial issues, he was going to ask about transgenderism, but I don't think he was there with anyone.
Even some of the footage that we've seen of him, I think prior to, like, he was basically walking around by himself from what I read. Black Swan, thank you very much. Revelations, great show. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Burtis Hills, Czar. That's like $1 million US, I think. Some Czar 14. Necklace cause bullet deflect equal big wound equal fragment. I don't believe that. I don't believe that a necklace would cause a bullet to deflect, especially at the degree that we're potentially talking about. Number one, I think if it went through the chain, it wouldn't even know the chain's there. Even if it hit the actual cross pendant, there's not enough metal there, and most jewelry is soft metals to begin with. I don't think that necklace would have any effect whatsoever on the ballistics of what took place. Any updates on release of the 3D files drone video? I talked about that earlier. Yes, I think we should have them tomorrow. I was talking to my guy. He's rendering it. He had been rendering it for 24 hours this morning, and he said it was about 80% done. So it's a lot of files. I don't even remember how many. I think it's thousands of actual pictures. It's pictures. Nice. Telemetry, but what we will get out of that is a resolution of plus or minus about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters of relative elevation. We're going to have a near perfect 3D model of that will be interactive. I will be sending those files out to everybody. I still need to get with a couple people to build out the 3D model. We want modeling of the tent in place and some of the other elements in place that will help us more accurately figure out what's going on with that and be able to put that into perspective. The other thing that I wanted to do is make sure that we had this model before I actually started, ballistic testing to make sure that we had angles and distances correct so that we can do some more of the ballistic testing and just make sure that we get it right the first time.
Yeah, you think it's like close to 9 degrees or something, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like the angle.
my calculations is 9.2 degrees as far as the vertical angle.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it is, and I think it's just looking at it. I've done a lot of angle shooting. High angle is what we call high angle shooting, where you really got to start changing the math a little bit with your ballistic solution. We consider it 15 degrees or more. And what I can tell you is that is nowhere near close to 15 degrees.
Mhm.
But again, what we will have is a very, very precise measurement on that to make sure that we have it all right and we're not missing something when we get into ballistic testing. Gray Hughes Investigates. Keep the good work. By the way, Gary is a pretty funny guy. He gets my dry humor. I said this the other day, and I'll say it again, man. I really enjoyed getting to hang out all day with Gray Hughes. So I told Gray that I was going out there, and he was like, hey, man, I might meet you. And we got busy and we didn't really talk. And I was getting ready to head out. He's like, hey, man, I was just calling you. I've been here for a day. I'll see you there. And by the way, I just want to say I am pretty pissed off for Gray. The day before we got there, that guy had been walking around everywhere, all over the neighborhood and everything else. And he ended up basically, building rapport with this homeowner, and the homeowner ended up giving him security footage that hasn't been released anywhere else. And then, of course, he put it out on a video, excellent video. Go check that out. And then everybody out there on X and everywhere else is, just gobbling up that video footage that he earned. He drove 11 hours, walked all day, put a lot of work into it without even so much, I don't care if people take my footage. You know what? I take it a little bit as a compliment. But,
yeah,
what I will also say is I appreciate a little shout out, like, hey, I got this from Paramount Tactical or whatever else. So for you people out there that are using Gray's hard-earned footage while you sat on your ass and did nothing,
yeah.
At least give him a shout out. Say, hey, go watch the full video on Gray Hughes Investigates. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, what I wish I would have done was with my videos is kind of put like a faint a faintness to my my socials over the video. Yeah, like a watermark. Just and then post it so if anyone took it, like it has my socials there.
I hear you on that. I don't think anyone pays attention to that internet stuff, to be honest with you. I really don't.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think look, if you're a content creator, hook people up. And I also want to say, again, Gray is super funny, super gracious guy. Enjoyed hanging out with him and getting to know him a little better. How does a shot from the front square with pics seeming to show the bullet in flight and air to CK's left? Pics might be of an insect, not bullet. Folks, there's multiple people out there that are trying to replicate a bullet being caught by a 30 frame or even 60 frame per second phone camera. I'm just telling you right now, number one, under normal circumstances, you can grok it, you can freaking chat GPT it. Now, I've heard the excuse is you can download a professional photographer app that will allow you to give your iPhone potentially enough frames per second to be able to capture a bullet flying through the air. The problem with that is I think that is very unlikely. And even if you were able to shoot at 8,000, not an aperture, your shutter rate, your shutter speed, even if you were able to get a shutter speed of 1/8,000, you would not see a bullet in multiple frames like is being proposed. I think it's 4 frames. And then you would not see an individual projectile. What you would see are streaks, long streaks. And I'm just telling you right now, any theory based on that, I call bullshit on it just right off the bat. So if I'll leave it at that. It really angry.
No need to expand.
Hey, Henry, up north from you in Mill Creek, Utah, do you think that the folks down in your area are convinced that Tyler was a lone shooter?
I think there's not enough people in the cities that critically think. It's kind of like what I was telling you, Gary. I think most of them think it's Tyler because that's what they've been fed. And much like people that think of themselves as victims to everything. Most people here, I feel like there's some people that are skeptical on Tyler Robinson, but it's the older folk. But like the younger kids my age, it's like they've lost the ability to critically think and analyze everything. It's like everything that's put in front of them is almost true. Um, so younger kids, yes. Older folks, no, they're skeptical.
Interesting. Well, let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think that Tyler was a lone shooter or was the shooter? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know if like see my with me is with how it played out with the FBI finding everything, the supposed note being destroyed, them not actually finding the lead on the on their own, but the father of Tyler convincing him to turn himself in. Um, and the bad quality of footage that we have of the supposed shooter, and then the whole um controversy with the facial features, which is a big thing for me, like the facial features and stuff like that. They could say they have the DNA evidence and stuff like that on of Tyler Robinson on the gun and all this stuff, but like
What do you mean specifically? Because there's well, what do you mean by facial features? I don't even want to.
so they have some footage of the supposed shooter going up the staircase, right? There's the AI one that they use to make it more presentable, which is freaking only makes it worse. But even the one that seems more faint to me, like the lips don't line up. Like his lips are way thicker than who supposedly is the one going up the stairs. To me, I don't know. And I'm not an expert. I'm just skeptical. I believe in due process. I want to see the evidence when it's presented in court. That's the type of person I am. I try not to jump to conspiracies, but I like to have the evidence, all the evidence be presented to me. But at the same time, I also know that our country's government hasn't been
You
totally
don't trust
transparent.
your government?
Uh,
No,
I plead the fifth.
we always be skeptical of the government. Again, like they have a track record, right? I don't care if you're talking about COVID, JFK. We could go
Yeah.
down a litany of time. The government, we know that the government has lied to us. You know,
More than a number of times.
so I'm with you on all of that.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. Like I have a certain feeling about this case, but at the same time, I don't want to rush to a conclusion either based on the very poor evidence that we have.
Yeah.
I think that you have to give me some other evidence that outweighs the evidence that I think that we have against Tyler before I'm willing to jump to anything else, but I am completely open to it.
Mhm.
And I realize there's not enough evidence that I could even say, hey, that was 100% Tyler. And tomorrow we could find out a whole bunch of new stuff that says, hey, it was something else completely. And I'm perfectly good with that.
Well, we were talking about this, Gary. The camera that supposedly caught him running off the roof. That camera that camera has the angle where it definitively has him laying flat on the roof. I want to see that. That's what I want to see.
Well, I do think there is an unreasonable expectation of the public right now. And I'm not saying it's unreasonable that they have an unreasonable expectation given the government's track record. But at the same time, we still have due process in this country. And I do think that original footage, I think people felt like that original footage that was released was to like prove to the public that they're being open and transparent about this whole thing. And that was not the intent at all. They wanted to release the minimum amount of footage to ID this guy. And I mean, it worked. I mean, what we can say is like, hey, if the facts that we've been given are found to be true, I don't know if it was in the charging document or not, but there is a record of, his father saying, hey, his mother calling the father, they both calling each other like, hey, is this our son? And then the father calling him saying, hey, where's that 30-06 that I gave you? And, there was a bunch of excuses made. There's a bunch of stuff out there, but that was the intent of that footage. It was not to prove to us that, they have the right guy. They're going to they definitely have footage of that shot being made from that roof. There's no doubt about it. There's a clear line of sight from that camera I don't know how clear it's going to be. I don't know
The
if we're gonna,
quality of it, yeah.
I mean, it's clearly zoomed in a bunch. It's cropped a bunch. The footage we have from that, but we will at least see someone, if it happened, lay down in the prone. And I don't know if we'll be able to see like a muzzle blast or recoil. I don't know if we'll get that level of fidelity. But I think, and this goes to the footage that we've seen too. I was talking to somebody on the phone about this today. All the footage that we've seen that have been released to social media is all the footage that the FBI didn't give a shit about or Utah didn't care about, right? Because if you had evidentiary footage, you're bringing that like, oh my God, I see him. Like there's somebody could have had, a cell phone footage of someone right on the edge taking a shot or someone at another location. Like, hey, I saw him over on this building or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to bring that to the FBI or the authorities. And once they turn that footage in, you're not getting it back. And on top of that, you are now an eyewitness that's going to get cross-examined by the defense. Because if you took that footage, they're going to bring you in and be like, did you take this footage? Okay. Well, where were you when you took this footage? Well, I was right here. So they have to corroborate that footage, and you're immediately going to be on a gag order, right?
Thrown in the middle. Yep.
Yep.
You can't say nothing.
No. So like the footage that we have is all the trash footage that the government doesn't care about. And that's what we're working with, unfortunately. And so the good footage, that all the stuff that people want, I mean, it's a murder case. We're just not going to get it, folks. Coach Kimberly Renee says, Henry, God won't throw you away. That's the beauty of salvation. It's all about Jesus did for you, not vice versa. God saved sinful people many times and then sent Jesus because man kept screwing up.
I'd say you're a unique Christian, not from the South, probably. I don't know, but there's so many.
Yeah, I agree with that message. I do think that's generally the message.
I agree.
I
agree there. Yeah.
We'll have to do a religious debate another time. Not even debate.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear a firsthand account of LDS and kind of. I'd have you reconcile some things in my mind, and probably some bad stereotypes and things like that I have about it.
That's what I was telling Charlie, is I would like, on platforms that no one brings on an ODS member who's educated in the history to or enough history to represent the ODS position. They always ask someone else's perspective that's not ODS, and I think that's quite funny.
Yeah, no, that's fair. George Yen is shown as a sponsor on Phil Lyman's website. I have heard that before. That's something I like to look up. Thank you, Scott Williams. Herd of Goats. Hey, mate, is there anywhere I can buy some Paramount Tactical t-shirts and hats? I'm in Australia, and the Paramount website doesn't ship here. Yeah, so we have a real problem shipping to Australia specifically. Herder of Goats, shoot us an email, services@paramountTactical.com. Folks, anything business related, you can send to services@paramountTactical.com. Do not send any of this related stuff to that website, please. You can send that to DLPodcast@ParamountTactical.com. But this, I will try to get you some. We'll figure something out. And it's not that we can't ship to Australia. Because we are a FFL and we are a gun company, we can't process payments from Australia because they're all commies over there walking around kicking kangaroos. That's just a fact. Write that down. Heard Tyler had part paralysis in his leg. Anyone? I think from what I've researched on this, I think this was bullshit that people made up to try to defend him. I don't know if it's 100% true. That was another thing that that's just come up in the last few days. I think it's nonsense, but I will look into it, Elizabeth. And if anyone else has some good sources of information, not some
hearsay.
Yeah, we want some good information. I don't think that's true though. Yeah. Scott Williams, yeah. Thank you very much, Scott. It's in the charging document. The suspect is captured on camera, low crawling to the area and going prone where the shot was taken from. I agree, Bronson. Great channel, by the way. You guys go follow Bronson. I was watching one of his videos the other day. Good YouTube channel. Common sense. Good approach. Yeah, it is in the charging documents. I've read the charging documents on this channel before. I understand that what we want, what everybody wants is to actually see that. But one of the things I wanted to verify is whether or not that camera would actually have a line of sight when I got there, and it definitely does. There's no doubt about it. And there's probably some more cameras that have line of sight as well.
That university is covered with cameras, dude.
Yeah. Somebody said the other day, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody said there's like 1,500 cameras on there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is a great comment. Anti-malware, his legs looked fine on the traffic stop video taken a year earlier. After dropping off that roof, quite a few people would definitely have a limp. And even in then, so Fubar, the context of this question, this point is people are saying that we know it wasn't Tyler because Tyler actually has a limp. And so the limp, there was no limp when he was running off the roof and all the other stuff. So that's kind of where that's coming from, just so we're clear on that. So even if a person had a limp after they jumped, that's not what they're actually saying. People are finding a way to exonerate,
justify that it's not him. Yeah.
To exonerate Tyler. I know there's a lot of people, I see them in the comments all the time, like, I feel so sorry for this guy that's being charged. He's just a patsy, or he's not guilty, or whatever else. I mean, again, his parents turned him in because the evidence they saw matched up, and I'm sure they had a long discussion with him before they turned him in. Unless you don't believe that either, I can't. That's just a rabbit hole I have no desire to go down into. Long hair guy who cheered seems same one who later stuck out his tongue in front of the camera close up. Yeah, so I've heard a couple of interviews that he's done now that he was basically trying to recreate what happened in Butler. He was there to support Charlie. There's other people that were standing by him that have corroborated that basically he was trying to say, USA, just like what we saw.
Yeah, Butler.
Yeah, after Trump was shot. So, and I did find those interviews compelling. Seem legit.
I guess that makes sense if that's what he was trying to do. He did scream USA. So
yeah. Philip Tabarek, would getting hit by a 30-06 knock you backwards more forcefully? No, as a matter of fact, really, Charlie was hit with so much energy, it almost looks greater than a 30-06. Again, I've seen people hit with 30 caliber rounds and things like that, and a lot of times they barely move. It's not like the movies, folks. The problem and the reason they barely move is usually we have something that goes through and through. What we see with Charlie is definitely unique, and it definitely, in my mind, rules out any smaller calibers just because the amount of energy that he's hit with. He's thrown back in his chair. His whole body even goes upward, and then he recoils back forward, and then he eventually starts to slump off to his side. So, no, I mean, I'd say what we're seeing is exactly what we'd expect to see with a 30-06. What we would also expect to see is an exit move. I will say that. John Avitable. Sorry, John, I don't know how to say your last name. They got the kid's confession when the father turned him in. Maybe. I don't know what he's actually said. They never show Tyler with the gun. I disagree with you, Tim. I disagree with a lot of people out there saying that he doesn't have a gun in his hand when he's getting off the roof. We've talked about that at length. Again, I think Gray does the best breakdown of that. If you look in that footage, because we have that white background, that's why the shadows disappear. It's called anyways, it's number one. What is it? It's range of anyways. It's a big white background. Even when he puts down his arms, he's wearing black. When he puts down his arms look super skinny, and then they disappear at points or look see-through. And it's because they're getting washed out, right? Because we have that. So it's the white that's washing out all the black. But there are definitely times, and Gray shows it best. So his arms and his legs are getting washed out to where they look almost transparent. So imagine what it's doing to the barrel of a gun that's much smaller. But there are definitely times when you see the towel rigid, and there's a couple of frames that he pulls and he shows how rigid the whole thing looks when he's walking away too. You have to go through there. You got to find so the idea that he didn't have a rifle, which I absolutely subscribed to that at first as well. But once I did a more analytical look at that, I do think that he has the gun when he gets off the roof, and you all are welcome to disagree with me. Dynamic
do you think
range was what I was trying to think of with the camera. Go ahead.
how do you think because they showed like the footage of him walking to the school too during that time?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the weapon here, or do you believe he like freaking tucked it down his leg and
No. So he tucked it down. I think he tucked it down his leg, but the back. So what I think he did, I think the most reasonable explanation is that he removed the stock from the barreled action. So you just have the barreled action with the scope
Mhm.
on it. And I think he has that down his back with the barrel coming down his right leg, just to like the back of the thigh. And then he has the stock probably in the backpack itself. So and then he has his backpack covering up potentially the optic. He could have reinstalled the optic too. I don't think he would need to, but I do think that he most likely just removed the stock, and that's the explanation that we have for the screwdriver. And that's 2 screws to put that back together. It can be done very quickly, very easily. Nothing
yeah.
hard about it.
Yeah, that's what I remember seeing you say that.
Yep. K-Beck says, I looked up George Zinn on Phil Lyman's campaign site. He's definitely a donor and wrote glowing things about Phil endorsing him. That whole thing's weird. I think that's an area now that like we're kind of coming to, I mean, we got a lot more work to do, but we're kind of coming to the end of what we can kind of figure out what's going on inside the amphitheater. That's my next phase is, after we do some 3D modeling, after we do some ballistics testing, these are the areas that I want to dive more deeply into, these different weird connections that make no sense between George Zinn and many other ones. I would like to figure out if those are true or not. We need to confirm or deny those links and figure out what makes sense from all that stuff. Long-haired guy did an interview, and he could be labeled in that case. He didn't seem, I agree. I'm sure we probably watched the same interview. I'm married to an ex-Mormon. You won't convince me. I know all about your church, and I have been there. Nothing against y'all personally, but you have changed. Everything is most likely copied from Freemasons. All right.
Hold on. No one ever argues against that Freemason stuff. That's fine.
Is there an argument against it, or is there more of a link?
No, I mean, no. There's just a link. Freemasonry ties back all the way to Solomon's Temple. So,
Sure.
so people don't know anything about Freemasonry. That's the issue. People are ignorant to what Freemasonry is for or stands for.
Okay, I can identify that. I don't know that much about it. I know they serve Satan. That's all I know. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
You're good, brother.
That's what I hear, right? That's what you hear. That's not rabbit holes I've gone down. Yes, the phone was probably on him. He was on a video call with someone in the audience. Maybe. I'm assuming we're talking about Tyler. I jumped into a conversation just randomly clicking these things. Let's see what the 1.5 million thrown by Utah at the case produced. They better bring it all.
I agree.
So Utah has spent 1.5 million on this case.
On his defense. So I wonder what the defense is going to bring in regards to just what's going to be presented at the court. Because I mean, if they got some very big name lawyers defending Tyler Robinson right now, so it's going to challenge 100% the prosecutors.
Does anyone think Tyler had his phone smartwatch when shooting GPS tracked? Well, it's not just GPS tracked. It's also they can ping those and triangulate his location. If he did, they're going to have it. All right. If what I would like to know more importantly than that is if he was doing pre-attack surveillance. So during the planning process of all this, right? Because that's one of the things that I want to know. I want to know how much planning went into it. If you believe the text, it says I've been planning this for a week. I want to know what went into that. Was he on location? Was he trying to figure these things out strictly from Google Earth? I think you would have to go to that location to figure some of these things out. Just, I knew a lot going into this, and then I looked at Google Earth quite a bit, but being there and seeing everything, it was completely different. And I would not have want to have tried to plan this just off of a map, right? Doing a map recon. So I'd like to know. That's one of the things I'd like to know. I want to know if they got his cell phone and GPS other times at the same location. Yeah.
Yeah, like mapping it out. It's like you said, because even you said in person when you looked at it through Google Earth, it's a lot more compact than you would imagine just looking at it.
It's more compact. The ability to like walk up those stairs and have a, like, I expected, even knowing what I knew, I expected, like, I don't know. One of the things I expected is like some concealment, right? Because folks, once you get on that walkway, let me show you on this real quick. I think this is worth bringing back up. All right, so once you get on this walkway, and I will pull this comment down. This was the crazy thing to me. All right, so this is the walkway, and this is the stairs that we came up, and allegedly he came up to. This walkway, like, I thought there was elevation changes in this area right here to where you couldn't see all the way to this point over here. There's not. This is just a straight shot. Like, and this is another building occupied by a bunch of different people. So anybody on this walkway, if they just happened to come up, would have had a direct line of sight. And folks, I'm telling you, like, this distance from here to over here, like, it's a baseball throw. It's not nearly as far as it looks. You would have seen him in broad daylight just laying there. That was one of the things that surprised me. I can't believe that there's just somebody didn't happen to walk around here or happen to come up the stairs or anything else. So
No, that
go ahead.
sidewalk to the right of the Lucy building, that's where that one guy, that one student off to
Yep.
the right over here, that's where he got the footage of him laying down on the Lucy
I
building right there.
I tried to take pictures from the exact same spot. In that footage, you see this thing. So that was actually further back than I thought it was. But yes, I took similar footage with a better camera, like right around in this area over here. But you can see that person laying down. There's another picture that just came about where it looks like he's on his knees. You can see him fully silhouetted, at least from like the knees up. And I don't know how real that picture is, but that's one thing that really shocked me. And I wasn't prepared for that. I thought there was going to be some sort of cover for the line of sight, and there just wasn't. Oh, Spencer, we covered this. The roof video doesn't clearly show the Tyler nor the gun. The reason they released that footage was to identify at the time they didn't have a suspect. So they released that footage. They knew, or they felt there was enough that if somebody knew this person, they'd be able to identify them. And clearly it worked because his parents turned him in. Bronson says charge documents subject captured on camera. Yeah, I covered that one earlier. That one I covered earlier. Odorized ramblings. Gary and Henry, thank you for your time. I've enjoyed your comments. Off topic, what's the best suppressor cover to eliminate suppressor heat mirage, or the best way to counter that mirage? Well, it depends. If it's a bolt action rifle, we sell a product called Cam Chaps. It's high temp, but it's not ultra high temp. So if you're putting it on an AR-15, you're going to be doing, a high rate of fire, not the one for you. The absolute best ones out there are Liberty Defense. We're not a dealer for them, but they're like $400 a cover. I just recently got some new ones in by TKM or TMK, I forget. I'm testing right now. I'm going to get back to you on those. Those are much more affordable, and they are ultra high temp as well. So great company. It's TMK and or TKM. Fuck, I don't know. Anyways, all right. So I'll let you know on that. There's some other products out there that are pretty good too. Do people in Utah text like maybe just voice recorded?
Do people in Utah text? Maybe just voice recorded.
Text. I texted with people in Utah. I can confirm that they text. I don't fully understand your
I
question.
was texting you before we started.
Dubra 79. Is it true his parents recanted that he confessed to them? Great show as usual. Thank you for sharing your story, Henry. I have not seen anything official. I've seen that out there in YouTube world, on X. I do not believe that to be true. Somebody can look that up for me and share that. I don't know, but I don't believe that to be true. Range Day Bro has more weapons on his back wall than Gary does, so I believe him more. I got more weapons than him, I guarantee you. I got a whole side over here with a lot, multiple times more than what I show.
My whole dream is to have a freaking room like the scene from John Wick where he's like, it's just whole room covered in weapons.
I think he means, do they text like Shakespeare? Yeah, I don't think they normally text like that. Charlie Kirk YouTube channel deleted all videos older than 1 year. Oh, that's weird. I didn't know that to be true. I'm gonna have to check that story out, Josh. I wonder why that's
interesting.
If that's true, if that's what happened. It was planned though. Yes, if you're talking about, I think this was definitely planned. No doubt about it. It's well planned.
What do you think? Let me get your opinion on this, Gary. Like, how do you think this was within the capability of a 22-year-old to plan everything like that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I don't think, I think it requires some planning and forethought. Look, man, I was
supposedly he wasn't a dumb kid either. Supposedly he was a pretty smart kid.
At 22 years old, I was a freaking sniper team leader going around Iraq doing sniper missions. Like, and here's the other thing.
You're right. You're right.
You know, it's like my kids, just number one, of course, they grew up in this, but I'll say in general, because of Call of Duty and all these other things, like these kids today are significantly more tactically minded than I ever was growing up, right? Like I think we undervalue the sophistication capabilities of people in general, and especially the younger generation. I don't think this was overly complicated, but I do think to pull it off, it would have taken some planning. And again, I could take you guys through the entire attack cycle planning, right? There's a whole planning process. You know, you're looking for target value, vulnerability. Then you're going to do pre-attack. You're going to do a surveillance on to make sure that the attack, the value of the target and the vulnerability are there. And then right before you pull off that attack, you're going to do pre-attack surveillance to make sure that those vulnerabilities are still there, the target value is still there. And the reality is, as he's walking up, he could have called it off at any point. I think he'd been at that location before. Look, I mean, when you pull up, number one, somebody confirmed the other day that in the venue, in the advertisement for this event, they told exactly where this was going to be. It was going to be here in the amphitheater. Now, I don't know. You guys put on your tactical thinking hats. If I'm going to have a speaker here in this venue, my gosh, where would they put him? Where would he be? I mean, it's the fact is that the terrain here dictates where the headliner or whoever's speaking is going to be. So like that was easy to figure out. There's nothing sophisticated or complicated about that. So at that point, all he needs is the line of sight and he needs the vulnerability. So, you know, I think he goes up there, not even sure if he's going to be able to pull this off the day of. He doesn't know what the security posture is going to be unless he does from something else, or there's other people involved to make sure that, like, all those things are very possible in my mind. But at the end of the day, like his final decision point was right here. And from there, he's like, hey, guess what? I hear Charlie talking. There's no cops up here. There's nobody stopping me. I jump over this. I assemble the rifle, throw 2 screws in this thing. He gets back up, looks around. Nobody's there to stop him. He heads out there, and like a minute later, he pulls off a shot. And then he runs over here to this corner, jumps down, and then he makes it off into these woods. So, yeah, I think a 22-year-old could actually absolutely pull this off. He could have had additional help, but I still think it's perfectly feasible that, he didn't either. Long shot, thank you very much. Can you give $5 to mod Jeff Johnson? He's going to need a beer after having to read through all the crazy theories people post in the chat. That's one of the reasons it's good where I can pay attention to whoever I'm talking with, and I don't have to get distracted by some of the craziness over in the chat.
Yeah, some crazy remedial comments.
Look, folks, this is a friendly space. Come here. I'm not going to make fun of you. I don't care if you tell me you think E.T. himself or he was killed by a predator, like I from outer space. I don't care. Yeah, man, I want to be able to talk to everybody. Has anyone done audio shot analysis? No. And no one's, I mean, I don't know what the FBI did. They had that place for 3 days at least. But let me tell you something. The moment that we got it
for a while, dude.
The moment we got on campus, the cops there was always a cop in sight. They were following us around, and they knew who we were, by the way. The cop that came up and talked to us and told us we couldn't fly a drone, he was like, look, man, I watch your guys' stuff. This was later. He's like, I know who you guys are. I watch your stuff. I like you guys. The dean is trying to get you thrown out of here. I was like, I'm not going to do that. We were by her window. So anyways, we were right by her window. We didn't know it. If cell phone footage is cached in 2 audio spikes, wouldn't a subsonic round from something air powered leave 2 spikes in the audio, a crack bang, also reverb through the would have left more than 2? Let me try to think this through and parse this out. Cell phone footage cached in 2 audio spikes. Wouldn't a subsonic round from something air-powered leave 2 spikes in the audio? A crack, bang, also reverb through the PA would have left more than 2. No. All right, so first of all, if it was a subsonic round, which we see no evidence of, whatever hit him was super. Like, one thing that we can say for sure is that there is audio evidence of a supersonic event. There was a boom, and there were multiple. We hear sonic cracks that can't be faked and can't just be pumped over an audio system, by the way. So we know that there is a supersonic event generally in the direction and the trajectory of the alleged location of the shooter. And if that happened, like, where did that round go if that's not the one that hit him? So that's my first question. Now, as far as subsonic, you may not hear a crack, and you definitely are not going to hear a supersonic crack. So that's the only thing I know to answer your question with. You're not going to hear that supersonic crack. But yeah. On top of gaming, LDS boys used to do full-time Boy Scouts for shooting, outdoor training, capture the flag, etc. So one of the things I was telling Henry earlier, there are shockingly a lot of SF guys, or a lot of LDS in SF. We probably had, I don't know, at least 7 or 8 in our company. A couple of them I became really good friends with. One of the things that I genuinely appreciated about all the LDS people that I've had, some personal contact with, and we've been to their house and things like that. They put family first better than just about any other denomination out there. I think that's something that we could all get better at and follow their lead on. The amount of family dedication time, the time that they dedicate to their families and make sure they're raising their kids and doing things with their kids. I haven't seen that across the board in any other religion, period. And they do. That's something I've always admired about LDS. Does no one else find it weird that there's no one else is running in the video when Tyler is jumping off? Not even the disappearing tree person who's unfazed by the sound of a shot as their timestamps. Well, I think we heard probably one of the most plausible examples as to why. I don't know, Dirty, if you're saying that another shooter or you're talking about like law enforcement or anything like that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But what I do think is that Henry made a really good point tonight, that I think that George Zinn did cause a distraction that allowed him to get away. And it was probably more effective than I probably was thinking in my mind originally. I'm like, okay, well, this guy made a fuss, but they were like, surely they still heard the round come from somewhere else. They didn't pay attention to them. Sounds like they from what you were telling me, he really drew everybody's attention to him, right?
Yeah, it's like I said, like if there's a close threat, no one's thinking about the threat that's further away from them, despite whether or not this sound came from behind. If someone's in the crowd screaming, "I did it! Shoot me!" Like your attention span is going to be focused on him, but then also at the same time you're getting away from him, and so yeah, it was very. Yeah, and that's who everyone seemed to talk about after we ran out to the front. They got the shooter, he's right there, or whatever, and they're throwing him in the thing, and everyone was just supposing that was him.
Gotcha. So, I mean, he put on a convincing act. Everybody there was like, they got him. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I only heard one shot from the guest here with a long mic. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, GS70 stealth. That's one thing I don't think I asked you. Did you only hear one shot?
Yes. One shot. That was the thing earlier that I was trying to say. I was trying to listen for other shots if there were going to be other shots fired. And when I didn't, that's when we finally got out.
Do you feel like outside of subsonic, I don't, and even subsonic, like subsonic guns make noise, people. Suppressed guns make noise. They're not as quiet as you think they are. Do you feel like from what you remember and what you heard, there was any possibility like a time shot where you heard like two shots back to back, or you just feel like it was just, you heard one shot and that's you feel pretty definitive about that?
I feel pretty definitive that it was just one shot. I think that was the focus of kind of everyone. I mean, so there was like, obviously you're gonna have that little echo there in the amphitheater.
Yeah.
But if I don't think you'd be able to time two shots and you not be able to distinct two shots from that in the amphitheater.
Fair enough. I will look this up. I was kind of looking it up right now, but Lyman endorsed by George Zinn. Check his website, scroll the endorsement section and see it. I don't doubt that's true. I don't look, we need to put some time. I need to put some time into looking up George Zinn and really digging into who he is and possible ties, and then, start coming up with some ideas about possible motives.
I'm gonna reach out to Congressman Kennedy and be like, yo, if you have a few minutes, what do you know about this guy? What has he done out here?
I'm gonna send you a guest link. You forward that to Kennedy, and then we'll just bring him on tonight as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like whenever he's in town, I always text his son, be like, yo, dude, let me know when your dad's back in town and he's not in DC. I got some questions for him. And he's really good with me, so
good. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a couple more minutes. We're gonna go through some of the live chats, and then I'm gonna get Henry out of here. Let's see. That's what I said. Subsonic in quotes. It's how the rounds are sold, but they're just lowered velocity, not exactly subsonic. That is true. Some subsonics, depending on what they're shot through, will end up being supersonic, and you still get a crack out of them. But again, the parking location of Tyler doesn't make sense. Why so far away and walking past so many doorbell cams? Well, this is a great question that I kind of found out for myself. I was planning on parking in the parking. There's like 2 or 3 different parking garages. And I met a guy there named Eric. He was an alumni, and he was kind of guiding me around. I said, well, hey, man, I'm on my way. He's like, hey, park at this parking place right here. It'll be close to where everything you want to see. So then he texted me. He's like, hey, man, that place just filled up. You need to park over there. There's two things that I would, and by the way, I parked right over in the neighborhood. And it wasn't a long walk. I mean, you know, it's a couple hundred yards. We ended up walking, kind of did this circuitous route, just trying to look at what he saw and followed his route and some things like that. But it's not a far walk. One thing I would say is that if I was trying to get out of there quick, it wouldn't make sense for me to try to run back to my car and then try to leave campus. You don't know if campus is going to get locked down or anything else. I think that's just common sense. It makes much more sense that you get out of there on foot, and then get over to the neighborhood where you can park anywhere. And we did. I parked multiple spots. We ended up moving a couple different times, doing some different things. I probably parked 3 or 4 different places within the neighborhood that he was walking around in. To me, it actually is intelligent, to say the least, that he didn't park on campus. The other thing too is, again, there's going to be a big event. There's going to be a lot of cars and everything else there. So there may not have been parking up front, but also too, you guys know how parking garages are. Once they get full, people start parking everywhere weird. It might have limited his exfil. InfoWars. This is actually Alex Jones in a pseudonym. I bet. I'm just joking. It was the wanker that Gunn and Charlie had some sort of body armor, where the conspiracy is who helped him, what alphabet or foreign op team. The wanker had a ton of help. I'd say that is a very real possibility. I would say that's where I lean toward, that this was more organized behind the scenes. I think all those things are very real and very possible. I do not think for a second that his furry transvestite boyfriend didn't know about this. I do not think I think there's zero chance of that. Number two, I think there's very little chance that at least people within his Discord group or within his personal weird furry group or whatever he's got going on, I think it's a very high chance that somebody knew in that and may have provided material aid as well.
I guarantee you some of them are going to be questioned or indicted, or I'm sure they're getting investigated hard right now.
Yeah, I agree. Julius Caesar, thank you for coming back from the dead and joining us. What concerns me is if it's true the parents' house was not searched. I doubt that's true. I almost guarantee that their parents' house were searched. Yeah. Oh, this is a great question. Did Henry realize he was talking to a hologram when he was talking to Charlie? So I'm told.
Yeah, so I thought the one thing that I noticed is that it was a super good hologram. Like, I gave him a fist bump and all that stuff before he even got up on the chair. It was very real. It was really expensive. I don't know what they did, but
look, man, I'm down with talking about exploring all of these things. For those of you out there, I'm just going to be real with you for a minute. Those of you out there that think it was fake or entertain these ideas that it was a hologram, you need to go talk to somebody. That's about as kind as I can say about this. I'm gonna try not to break my rules and say something ugly. But
yeah.
y'all need Jesus.
It's hard, dude. It's hard. Trust me, whenever I was debating those.
Because y'all's brains are broken. That's what I'll say. Scott Williams, thank you very much. My apologies if you already covered this. Just jumped in here. I've been praying you've watched the Baron Coleman videos. Would love your analysis. I appreciate you, Gary. Thanks. Baron Coleman, I have not. I will check it out.
How you're writing it down, though. Hell yeah.
I've written down a few things here.
Nice.
There's 2 things that I'll check those out. I do plan on, because I just keep getting hit with it. I do plan on doing a video and going through the different elements of the Trigger Smart video. So I'm going to put a video out on that just because I've addressed it on Twitter, and I'll address it here. There's so many elements of that are just ballistically nonsensical, physics nonsensical. There's a whole bunch of elements. Like being as kind as I can with that. That theory is completely implausible. I'll just put it like that. But I will do a full video on it and break it down by element by element. There has been footage of any ill players scouting out the roof in advance. There has to be footage of any ill players. I agree. And relaying that to TY, I don't think TY went to the campus without knowing he had to. I think that Tyler went to the campus. That's what I think right now. I don't know that. That's speculation. If that was my job to do, or I was planning that, I would want to get eyes on and have a little bit better idea of
in person. Yeah.
I mean, it's a 2-hour drive from where he lived. He could have done it. He could, and of course, he could have already been there and just happened to be. He could have attended there for a different event or been there at something else and knew. Because one thing that he did say, apparently to his father, when they were talking about him being at UVU, he was like, "Oh, that's a stupid place for him to be," or something along those lines. I don't know that indicates that he's been there before or familiarity, but that's kind of the impression that I get.
Well,
so I think he went there either in recent time planning this or maybe before.
And it makes me think, because I think in those text messages he alludes to his partner that he would be in Orem a little while longer, which makes me think, how long did he tell his partner he was going to be there for? It doesn't specify. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, no. I was referring to Adam. One of your guests was a UVU. Yeah, Adam Bartholomew. I forgot your other question. Stealth. If I go back, I'm gonna screw. Here it is. Yeah. I only heard one shot from the guest here with the long mic. You're right. Yep. Adam Bartholomew. That was the best sound that we've gotten from that event. He had the highest quality mic that we've heard. Makes perfect sense that we hear more of the highs, more of the lows, much better audio dynamic range, and it sounded like what I would expect a 30-06 to sound like.
I need to watch his video, because in person from where I was, it did not sound like a boom. But if his audio picks it up and he was closer, then I can understand, given the layout.
JJ from Iowa. First of all, I have like 6 rolls of Tucker's Alp up there. This Zen that I have here, that's not what I hate Zen actually. My wife found a bunch of this on sale. I was like, thanks for buying me the crap I hate. But the one I prefer is Velo, and I need to stop doing it because I always I did Copenhagen for like 20 years, like in the military. And I never did it all. I was always like self-conscious about dipping.
Mm-hmm.
But I never was one of these guys that had this big jaw and like spitting every couple of minutes. I did it very low key, but I almost always had a dip in my mouth. And a couple years ago, multiple times I've quit, and then I take it up again like an idiot. It's not good for kids. Don't do that. Anyways, Velo is what I prefer. Baron Coleman is the one that originally invented Google Trend Search. Thanks. Gotcha. I will check that out. I have his name written down as well. We'll check all that out. All right. We've gone 2 hours deep, folks. Oh, God, there was another super chat. Look up the definition. Look up the definition of Orem in Hebrew. I will do that. Orem. I'll write that down. Orem in Hebrew.
I don't know what the validity of that would be, just because there's no vowels in Hebrew. Like, what would?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll check it out. And see what. There's got to be vowels in Hebrew, right? Anyways, we'll get into the linguistics debate at the same time we do the.
It means craftiness.
All right, folks. Listen, we really appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully, you found this helpful. Hopefully, you learned something educational, informative, maybe even a little humorous from time to time, and entertaining. We got a lot more information to come. Henry, you got anything else that you want to leave with the people with?
No, not really. I think from what we've talked about already, from a little bit things that we've clarified in regards to people being pointed fingers at for being involved. I think we're just gonna let due process do its job. Hopefully, we can trust the government on that, but fingers are always going to be crossed on that aspect. But let's just hope. Let's just hope that we stay thinking critically. I feel like that's the important thing right now. We
I
always
agree.
need to be skeptical.
I agree with you. We got to be skeptical. Look, folks, you got to be discerning and skeptical of both the government and definitely of the internet too. And I think that's what we're here doing. We're trying to do our best to figure out what was going on. That way, when more of the information does come out, we have a good knowledge base of what's going on with all this, so that we can compare and contrast what the government ends up telling us and saying, "Hey, is this evidence? Is this legitimate? Does this make sense? Can we find holes in it?" That's what I wanted to do. I think our job, because the mainstream media doesn't do it anymore. That's a fact. They do not hold the government accountable. The government and the mainstream media, I don't care if you're watching Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, they're all intertwined one way or the other. That's why you have all these government officials, they get out of government and they go work for these organizations, and vice versa. By the way, we've seen that multiple times where news anchors leave and suddenly they have a government position. Ooh, that's not weird. So, they're all scratching each other's backs, and it's not a good relationship. That's not how this system is supposed to work. So you're left with scrubs like Gary Melton trying to figure things out and bring you as much information as we can. I will be showing you all the 3D. We'll be releasing that in the next couple of days. I promise you that. And I think that will be very informative for a lot of people out there, right? And again, we want to try to investigate everything, entertain everything within reason, and figure out what's true, what's possible, what's not. And I don't know. We'll see how it all turns out. Well, listen, Henry, I really, really appreciate. Number one, I'm glad I got to meet you. And
Likewise, dude.
You're a great guy. I enjoy talking to you. I'm glad I got to meet you there in Orem. We'll definitely stay in touch. I appreciate you taking the time to tell us your story and share what's going on and your perspective with everything. And man, thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate it, man. We'll stay in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Just want everybody to know we will also be doing a live stream. Don't go anywhere, Henry. We'll be doing a live stream with Gray Hughes tomorrow. We're going to do that at 8:00. We're going to go through some of the new footage that he got while he was there, some of my footage. We'll talk about what we saw there. It'll be another great show, and he definitely got a lot of interesting things. You can go check it out on his, but we'll be talking about some of the new footage from different perspectives. So it'll be a great show. So make sure you tune in with that tomorrow at 8 p.m. Henry, don't go anywhere. But for everybody else, I want you to have a wonderful weekend. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.